From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas and Stunning Digital Marketing. In this podcast, I sit down with my friend, Misty Rose Gold, and we talk about having a business coach. This is one podcast you don't want to miss. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Hey everybody, Stunning Digital Marketing is your digital concierge. We help you put the pieces together to make your marketing success. Specialties we have including WordPress design and development, WordPress security, which is one of our most popular offerings, ads, and more. So if you want to succeed in the digital world, go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and have a look at what we offer, and we'd be glad to help you. And let's jump on a call and make it happening. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Hey, everybody, Rob Cairns here. And today I'm here with my guest, Misty Rose Gold. How are you, Misty?
I am good. How are you?
Doing good. Toronto at the time of this recording is like a nice early summer day, believe it or not. The leaves are changing, but it's absolutely gorgeous outside. So that's a good thing, you know? And how's Denver?
It's about the same. Today is going to be the coolest day of the week. So the high is supposed to be 77. The rest of the week is supposed to be in the high 80s. And we have the leaves changing. So it's a very nice Indian summer, as we call them here.
We call them the same here, and I'm not complaining. I was talking to my brother yesterday, who's outside of Edmonton, Alberta, and the rocky areas are starting to get cold. And as I said to him, keep it. And we didn't get any rain from that hurricane that went up the U.S. this week, so I'm a happy camper today. So there you go.
Yay. That's awesome.
We were going to jump in and talk a little bit about business coaching, which I think is something that's misunderstood by a lot of people. Don't do it. People don't do it. They don't see the value in it. They don't see what they should do. How did you get into business coaching? Do you want to tell a little bit about your story?
Yeah, so I like to say that I'm a success coach for business owners and executives because I'm a business coach and then some.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cover everything human related. So it's massively different from the traditional business coach. And how that all came to be was at 8 years old, I had a spiritual experience that then gave me that knowing that, hey, you're here to change the world. So, as kids, we often, I want to grow up and be a doctor. I want to grow up and blah, blah, blah. And that hit me at 8. And I was like, oh God, this is the scariest moment of my life. Okay, what? I'm going to change the world. Okay. Not sure how, but okay. So what that did is that it set me on a path of changing my world because it opened my eyes to even more of the dysfunction and the abuse and the toxicity that I was surrounded by on a daily basis with my family. So it opened my eyes, and therefore I started looking for, how do I do better? How do I create a better life? Shouldn't I have a better family to change the world? Well, clearly I have to understand the human struggles in order to change the world. If I had a perfect life with a beautiful, loving family, I wouldn't understand that and I wouldn't be good at what I do. So that's where it all began.
Yeah.
And then go ahead.
No, keep going.
I ended up leaving home at 15 because it was not a good environment for me. And I knew I needed to thrust myself out into the world. If I'm going to change my life, I have to give myself a different environment. I just knew that if I stayed where I was going to become like the people that I was around, and I didn't want to become like them. And I went through excuse me, I went through a series of events that made it very clear that my parents didn't love me And when that realization hit me, I left about a month later. So,
I stop right there for a minute.
yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. Everybody should be loved by their parents, and if I was there, and I probably shouldn't say this on podcast, going to I ask you if I could give you a big hug right now because
Oh,
that's a hard word to say. Like honestly,
thank you. I appreciate it. And I would receive that hug.
yeah, you're welcome. So that's legal in the coaching. It's the typical person that comes to you and that needs a business coach. Like, what's your typical client?
So, my typical client, I work with empire builders
Yeah.
and people who are building an empire and doing it with integrity, not a bunch of bodies underneath them. So, that's number one. It's a different thought process. And sometimes people need permission to say that they are an empire builder. So, there's that too. Uh, Most of the people that I work with are very decent people. They are extremely intelligent. They're building something, and this thing is beyond them, and they need help. They know that they can't do it alone. You cannot build an empire with one person, it takes an army.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, the commonalities. And then a not so obvious commonality between my clients is that they have a difficulty in saying no
Mhm.
and setting boundaries.
Don't I know that problem? Right? Yeah. I hear you on that one now. And I think I had a CTO when I worked in healthcare.
Mm,
And those who don't know, CTO means Chief Technology Officer.
mm,
And we were very close for a long time. And he used to say what made his job easy in building an IT department and one of Toronto's biggest hospitals was the people that worked for him. And I
mhm.
think sometimes people building empires want to have their hands in too much and they do not want to uh, receive that help, or they don't want to let go, or they don't want
Mhm.
to delegate, or they don't want to do any of that. Would you agree that's a common issue?
It is a common issue, and I gently, patiently guide my CEOs and business owners to setting the proper boundaries for their time, for their employees, whatever it is that their situation is, and then being able to identify, okay, this is my role, this is what I'm really good at. Now let me pass off everything that I'm not good at so that other people can take
Mhm.
up the slack, and being able to delegate and define the roles of the people that they work with or work for them. So it's very important. And we're looking at the truth of the big picture and
Yeah,
then bring it down to actionable steps each day.
yeah. I had a mentor by the name of Paul Toby. Shout out to Paul. He's an interesting guy. He was a jazz musician, an award-winning
Mm,
jazz pianist, turned digital marketer. There's a story for you sometime.
okay. That's an
Partially because
interesting.
partially because playing jazz clubs in Montreal didn't make you a lot of money, Misty. I mean, that's the reality of it.
Mm,
And he used to, one of the things he drilled into me, and Paul and I are good friends to this day. I mean, we go out socially, we talk, is if you don't like doing something in business, get somebody to do it for you. If you're not good at doing something in business, get
mhm.
somebody who's good at doing it for you and concentrate what you're good at and what makes you money. How do you like that philosophy?
I love it. I have my wealthy mind partner. So he doesn't have his hand in my coaching business, but anything with the wealthy mind label, I have a partner in, and he handles all the technology.
Mm-hmm.
Technology fries my brain.
How does
So
it?
he doesn't want to do what I do. He's behind the scenes, behind a computer. He doesn't want to be the face. He doesn't want to be the hunter-gatherer of the people, but that's what I do. And I love it. So we make a great partnership.
Yeah, that's awesome. With CEOs, is time management a big problem? And I would say probably yes. I've
Hmm.
enough business execs over the years, and one of the things that drives me nuts is they have a personal calendar, they have a calendar for the kids, they have a calendar for the work, and
Hmm.
sooner or later something gets missed because none of these calendars overlap.
Yeah.
And you're smiling at me, but you know where I'm going.
Hmm.
One of the things I've subscribed to over the years, and I did this when I worked for somebody, I've done this even in my private life now as an agency owner, in my personal life, is keep one calendar and put everything in one spot. Would you think they should be kept separate, the same? What's your feeling on that?
For me, I keep two different calendars, but
Yeah.
everything is on one calendar. So I have one calendar and it's color coordinated.
Yep, that's what I do.
If everything is the same color, it makes my brain think that everything is work related. So I have to color coordinate it in order to let my brain think that it's different and it's not all work related. Because
Mhm.
if I see 15 things on my calendar for one day and it's all work related, I'm not wanting to get up the next morning and do it, right? So um, I color coordinate based on, okay, this is not directly work related. It might be a networking event. It might be a personal thing. It might be on my to-do list, but it's on my calendar and it's color coordinated. So that is all in one place. And then I have a secondary calendar for invites
Yes.
where I send people invites and they send me invites and all that stays on that calendar. So it's very organized.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think organizing our calendars is part of time management. It's part of boundaries. It's part of being more efficient and seeing where we can get back some more time.
Do you take items off your to-do list and put them in your calendar so you actually have time to work on them, or do you just kind of work off your to-do list?
Um, I have a to-do list for the major things, but most of my to-do list ends up on my calendar in a specific color.
Yeah,
And
I like.
I love being able to delete it from my calendar.
Yeah. I actually like that idea. I color code mine, so it's funny. My mom was with me yesterday, and she said, "What was?" And I had mine printed out in front of me at the kitchen table the other day,
Mhm.
and she's like, "That looks like a coloring book." I said, "Yeah, it is because I can run down it and for example, like this podcast record we're doing now, I code all my
Mhm.
podcast stuff in yellow." So I go in and I change the color. And I can say, oh, I got 2 podcast records this week. I got 5 business
Mhm.
calls this week. I've got time booked to do stuff. I know for me, I don't take appointments on Mondays and Fridays as a rule. They're work days.
Mhm.
Friday afternoons, everybody's checked out. And Monday morning, you're dealing with all the emergencies from the weekend. So I don't like to. I
Mhm.
will the odd one, but and then it's all color coded, and I can look at it real quickly and say, okay, this is where I need to be. This is what's going on, and
Mhm.
it makes life easy.
It
Um,
does.
besides time management, which is a big deal, I'm sure, of what you do in setting boundaries,
Mhm.
do you go through a lot of esteem problems with the people you coach, imposter syndrome, that kind of stuff, or is that generally not an issue?
Mm. I mean, it comes up. So I'll just give you an outline of how my coaching works so that you understand my flow. Now, when I take on a new client, we start with the main goal. What is our main goal that we're striving for? If it's taking the business from 1 million to 3 million, whatever the case is, what is our goal? And then looking at that picture and saying, okay, let's strive toward that. And
Mhm.
each time we get together for a session, we talk about, okay, what's happening now? What is popping up in life and business that we need to deal with, all the things, right? Because you can't do business effectively if you're not managing your life effectively, right? So,
Oh, bingo. And I'm just gonna stop you from it. Though
yeah.
that is like power words right there. The business life and your personal life intertwine, and people need to realize that there is no such way, especially if you're trying to build something and keeping those two separate. People say they
Yeah.
can, and my response is, I don't believe you.
You
Because you
can't,
can't.
they cross over.
Yeah. So keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. So it's a very simple process. It's all business related as the main goal that we're working toward. And
Mhm.
then in that process, inevitably, because I've been doing this for eons, decades, all the things, right? In that process, you will find that the personal stuff pops up, the insecurities pops up,
Oh, yeah.
the self-esteem issues pop up, the boundary issues pop up. They naturally just pop up because the business and whatever's happening in the business will reflect what we need to look at on a deeper level. So I don't start with personal development. That's not how this works. It just naturally pops up as we work on developing the business.
Yep. I don't
Mm,
know if you and I talked before we did this. I know we did a bit of a call one day, and I don't know if I share with you. I'm a big personal development person. I always have
mm,
been. So I've probably got, I stopped counting, but I'm probably in 100 book range in personal development stuff and physical books. Like I'm a reader. So
mm,
that's reading's part of personal development, but I'm also that whole personal development space interests me. How
mm.
do you do stuff? How do you do? And and the thing is, not all the big motivators are for everybody. Like
Right.
I know for me, I'm a big Tony Robbins fan. I have been for years. I've been to
Hmm.
Tony's events. I think one of the most empowering thing I ever did, Tony, was the Walk on Fire in Chicago.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
that's just I was scared, nervous,
Sure.
empowering. And Tony's not a small guy. He's like 6'5" or 6'6". He's a
Yeah,
big,
it's a big way.
yeah, but humble as ever. And when you talk to him one on one, he's pretty humble. And
Mm,
I'm dying for him to come back into Toronto so I can do another event, or I'm going stateside. I haven't decided, but he's
hmm,
one guy I like. There's a number of people I like, but I just find that what you end up doing is you listen. The way I work is I listen to people like yourself. I listen to some of the big people. I read, and then I
hmm.
take a piece here, a piece there, and I put it together and
Yeah.
kind of learn. I don't like to learn from one person.
Well, I never tell people I'm the end all be all. I'm just a
Yeah.
piece of their puzzle. So
Mm.
it takes an army to build an empire.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
it's not about my ego, it's about creating the most fulfilling journey of building this empire for my people along the way. That's what it means to me.
I agree. What's the most challenging thing you find with the types of people you sit down with to help them with typically?
Being able to connect their head to their heart
Okay.
and get in touch with their emotions. So I love that challenge because I don't like the opposite challenge. I don't like it when somebody is super connected emotionally, but they're shut off to their intelligence. They're shut off to logical thinking. They're shut off to problem solving. For me, that's a nightmare. So
Yep.
I love, love, love my intelligent people. If they're analytical, I don't care, bring it on. I can help you connect to your emotions. I can help you connect to your heart. Like that's part of my jam. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think especially males, I think males
Yes.
are brought up not to be emotional, and I'm the opposite. And we were sharing a little bit before, and I won't share that because I think we were getting pretty in depth, but I can be very emotional. And where I get very emotional, typically for me, it's when I'm on my own. So if I have something,
Mm,
say, bugging me I go for a walk every night and
mm,
I do an hour to an hour and a half of walking.
mm,
And I'll find sometimes on that hour and a half, if something's bugging me, the tears flow, the stuff
hmm.
flows, the emotions flow because
Yeah.
I use it to think. And I think males have this conception that they have to be tough and they have to be there. And I've had friends tell me that I have the emotions of most ladies. So I, and I'm not saying that to be sexist. I just understand. I'm a pretty emotional guy. I listen. Music for me will tell you exactly what my mood is,
Hmm.
depending what I'm listening to.
Yeah.
For example, before I do a recorded podcast, I'll always listen to rock music
Oh,
before
nice.
because it brings my energy up.
Sure.
If I'm a thinking guy, I'll go out and listen to some easy listening, like the Chicago and Air Supply, stuff like that. It all depends on the mood I'm in. And the music
Hmm.
for me is all about the mood.
Yeah. Well, emotions are great. I love emotions and I support them. Like, a lot of my people, even the guys that I work with, and I would say about 75% of my clientele is men because I do create an exceptionally safe space for men to just be and work through whatever they need to work through, be it business related or personal or relational. Like I love creating that safe space and creating that safe space for their emotions. So you have the full package of you have the intelligence, you've got the logic side of your brain
Thank you.
kicking in, but you also are in touch with your emotions, which is awesome.
And that's hard,
Now,
and that's hard to do. And sometimes you just got to be vulnerable, Misty.
yes, yes.
And
And
that can be hard.
it can be, and that's why I create such a safe space with zero judgment with guys because I want them to understand the power that comes from being vulnerable. They understand the power that comes in from getting in touch with the truth of what it is that's going on inside of them emotionally, because the reality is we're all emotional.
Yeah.
It's just admitting it or not.
Yeah. I did a presentation a number of years ago, and the day I did it was on the anniversary of my dad passed away, which I almost never
Mm,
do. And I agreed to do it because, excuse me, the gentleman I was doing it for his company, one of the biggest beer companies in Canada and in the world, um, his father did business with my father, and he knew what date it was.
mm,
And I will tell you, I got on stage and I've known him for 40 years. He's my age. And he said, I've never seen you that emotion on stage ever, Rob. And I said, and you know what today is, don't you? And he said, I do. And I said, there's your answer.
mhm,
So sometimes you just got to be yourself and let it go. And that's hard. And it's even
mhm.
worse when it happens in front of 1,000 people and you're sitting on that stage. Believe me, it's worse. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with being vulnerable and just open, right? It's what
Yeah.
creates human connection. So I'm vulnerable from stage as well. And that's my goal when I speak is to connect with the audience. It's not to
Mine
make
too.
everybody convince them of how amazing I am. It's to connect with them and be of service, right? So I have a cool story to share with you. Can I share it?
Sure, of course you may.
Yeah. So there's this friend of mine. We reconnected after probably 8 months of not seeing each other. We know each other from the business world, so we reconnected last week, and he is dealing with major, major issues in his marriage, facing divorce, all the things, and he's processing all the different parts of decision making with this. So we talked a few times last week, and then on Friday we got together. I took him to a park where I love to just go and eat lunch and all the things. And I just wanted to take him to a place that was no distractions, nature, all of it. And we sat there and had a conversation about all this stuff. And in that process, he's like, I want to make sure that I'm not showing up in a way where he's projecting. He was like, I want to make sure that I'm not guilty of the same things that I'm accusing my wife of and the things that irritate me about her. I want to make sure I'm not doing them. So he's showing up very authentically and honest and truth. And I so appreciated that and I respected it and honored it. And we just kept talking through things and I kept asking him questions and then presenting opposite views so that he could then make his own decisions.
Yeah.
And in this process, he's like, okay, I need to take a break. And I was like, okay, cool. So I was facing him. I was sitting on the ground facing him. And I flipped around and I sat next to him facing the water. And as soon as I did that, he started crying.
Yeah.
And I wrapped my arms around him from behind. We were sitting next to each other on the ground, so you can imagine. I wrapped my arms around him and I just held him and I felt all of this stuff going on inside of him.
Yeah.
And he's crying and he was like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
And I said, that's okay.
Yeah.
Being scared is a normal part of this process.
Yeah. It
It's
is.
okay.
It's life changes and it's hard.
Yeah. And then he said, I'm broken. And I said, that's okay.
Yep.
There have there have been so many moments in my life where the truth broke me.
Yep.
But on the other side, it's so much more brilliant and it's so much more fulfilling and all the things. So I was able to reassure him from that place, but just hold space for him and his fear and hold space for him feeling broken.
Yeah.
It was it was such a beautiful moment. And this guy is very masculine. He's an open communicator. So
Yeah.
um it was nice to give him that space because he doesn't have that space anywhere else.
Yeah, it's so hard. I know even being vulnerable, like I'm pretty, I would say I'm a pretty accomplished public speaker. I've done
Mm,
big stages, I've done small stages.
hmm
At 15, I was a provincial debating champ. I will tell you, I almost quit. I had a fight with my coach. It's one of my best friends to this day in his 80s. I told him to screw himself, and he was one of my teachers in high school. And I'd go into class, and he'd look at me and say, "Mr. Cairns, are you going to talk to me today?" And I'd shake my head at him and say, "Go away." And this went on for months. And then I won the provincials. And he looked at me, and I can remember as a 15-year-old, he said to me, "You know why I chewed you out? Because you're really good at what you do, and you just needed a match." And he's in Montreal. I'm in Toronto. Every time I go into Montreal, I have dinner with him to this day. Um,
Mm.
but what I'll tell you is, every time I take a stage, I get an upset stomach to this day, and I end up in the bathroom right before I take the stage. And
Really?
yeah, I do. And I'm unaccomplished, and I know my material, and I get an upset.
Hmm
It doesn't matter what talk I'm getting, how big, how small, I get an upset stomach. And I was talking to somebody in the business world about that, and he said, "You know why you do that, Rob? Because you really care about what you're delivering, and
Mm.
you're good at it. I mean, so we process emotions in a different way, and we
hmm
all, and none of it's right or wrong. It's what's right for us, and that's what matters. I mean, and too many people play on emotions. I had an ex-wife who used to say, "You feel the way you do, and that's your problem." And my argument used to be, "You don't get it, do you?" You know, so you understand that. Um,
Yes, I do.
moving on a bit. So we've talked about that. What other things typically going through your process do the clients struggle with at their end? Like, I would assume these are people where money's not typically an issue unless they're raising it for the business. I would, but I could be wrong. Um, what did they really struggle with, Misty?
Yeah, money isn't usually the struggle with my clients. Now, of course, there's struggle in growth, there's struggle in financial growth. Of course, there is, but the initial struggle financially is not what we deal
Yep.
with. Um, a lot of them deal with the struggle of being alone
Yep.
and being stuck in their own thought process. And it's so refreshing for them to have an outside perspective come in that's not emotionally attached to their outcomes.
Yep.
And that's me. So I give them that unbiased perspective, the unattached perspective, the just a refreshing perspective. And they're like, wow, damn, um, this is why I got stuck. You know, a lot of them get stuck within their own thoughts and then they just don't take action in the ways that they need to take action or want to or desire to. Yeah.
And I would suspect a lot of these people are what we call high achievers, I would think. I
hmm
would suspect a lot of these people are ADHD, I would bet, which is not uncommon in high achievers.
Um, hmm.
That's interesting. Eh?
I don't know if my people are ADHD. I know one is for sure, but the others, they don't present as such.
Yeah.
Now, my analyticals have a really hard time executing because they overanalyze everything. And
So
I
you're
wouldn't
speaking to
necessarily call that ADHD. They just have the overanalyzing symptoms of I can't get shit done because I think about it too much.
you're speaking to him. Like we're laughing, but yeah, I know that deal
Yeah, yeah,
all too well because I'm
yeah.
analytical. Always have been, and I overanalyze and I overanalyze and I over.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I've actually been diagnosed with it, believe it or not, many
Okay.
years ago. So
Okay.
part of it is just finding out how to deal with it. Like I live a normal life. You wouldn't,
Sure.
you wouldn't, but
Sure.
it's learning how to deal
Definitely.
with it. The other problem too I have is as a business owner, and you probably see this in a lot of your high-end execs, I get bored very easily. very user.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, like for me, boredom's a big deal. And I
Mm-hmm.
have to do things in my personal life and my business world to keep that boredom away. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm. I understand that. And that's one of the benefits of working with me is to I keep my people focused.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes it changes. It changes from week to week, month to month, what they need to stay focused.
Yeah.
So it's understanding from my point of view, it's understanding the whole human.
Mhm.
And sometimes we need certain things to stay focused. And then, next month we're going to need different things. So that's one of the major benefits is I keep people on track. We keep the momentum growing
Mhm.
instead of the start, stop, start, stop, start, stop.
Yes.
We keep that train moving and the momentum is allowed to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow from there. It's a beautiful process.
There's a really good book out there called The Power of Focus, isn't there? And
Hmm.
I don't know if you've read it or not read it.
Hmm.
It's just an interesting look on how they keep focused. And the
Yeah.
problem with people who struggle with focus is if you don't want to do something, they'll take that task and they'll put it at the bottom of a list somewhere and they just ignore it, hoping it will go away, right?
It
It,
never does. Never
it
does.
never did. No,
Yeah.
I actually took my to-do list this morning before this call, and I've been in a bit of a rut the last couple of weeks due to personal
Hmm.
reasons and family
Sure.
reasons and other stuff. And I actually reorganized my whole business and personal life for the next 4 weeks. I
Mm,
just sat down and said, "This isn't working. What am I doing wrong? And let's
right.
fix it." And that's kind of sometimes you just got to take a step back and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, oh,
100%. Now,
yeah,
there's one thing that to keep people focused that I want to share with you and your
no,
audience
please,
is
please, no,
we have one bullseye that we need to create. What is that one bullseye that we're aiming for? What is that one bullseye that we're putting all of our energy and effort into? Now, that one bullseye will present different bullseyes that we need to focus on each
yeah,
week.
yeah,
So coming into a session with me, okay, what is our goal today? But more importantly, what is the bullseye today that we need to focus all of our energy and effort on? So that keeps all the distractions at bay. It keeps people focused and it helps them to understand where they need to set the correct boundaries. Does this take me away from my bullseye? Does this thought process take me away from my bullseye? Does this action take me away from it or get me closer to it? So the bullseye effect is very, 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 very important because most people are taking the shotgun approach, and the shotgun approach is never going to create that momentum that we need to create an empire or
yeah,
build that empire. It just doesn't work. So we need that singular focus to
mhm,
pull all of our energy, effort, and resources into, and then that's where the magic happens.
yeah. What I would say to that is, and I like this idea, you have a big bullseye and then you have a bullseye tail. It's almost like creating smaller goals to meet bigger goal. And I
Yes,
think
yes.
one of the problems people have, I'll also share with you, I have a bit of a project management background, and I'm not trying to project manage people's lives, not at all. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work. But the similarity is what you do is you create those small today bullseyes to get to the bigger bullseye. You create smaller goals to get to the bigger goal because
Mm-hmm.
some of these bigger goals are hard to obtain. So you need
Yeah.
baby steps on the way that are actionable, that are obtainable, that are quantifiable, and that
Mm-hmm.
have a timeline. And to me, that last one is so key. There's no point in putting small bullseyes out there if you don't attach a timeline to them.
Mm. Yeah.
What do you think about that?
It works for a lot of people to set a timeline. Now, for me, I don't work well with timelines because
Okay.
I'm self-motivated. I am extremely self-motivated and I love what I do. So does not work for me to give me a time deadline. If you give me a time deadline, I'm going to be like, leave me alone, go away. I'm not doing it. So
Okay.
I work differently than most people, but most people work really well off of timelines, deadlines, and all those type of things. Um, I love the use of the bullseye because when we think about goals, they're just kind of like floating out in the ether. Like, what are
Yep.
they? They're intangible to our brain.
Yes.
Now, if we think about a bullseye and put a title on that bullseye, that's tangible to our brain. We can see it. We
Mhm.
can like, oh, that makes sense. It's not just floating out there somewhere. It's, oh, I can actually see this, right? So it works really well for focus.
Yeah. I would agree with you. It's one of the reasons to draw the parallel with New Year's resolutions. We've all done that stuff, right? No, oh, I want my business to do this. I want my business. And we all know that 99% of New Year's Day resolutions never come to reality because
Hmm.
they're not true goals per se
Right.
or size, if you as you call them.
Yeah.
They're kind of floating out there. And that's part of the problem, right? I think people need
Hmm.
to be done. And I also think people need to sit down and reevaluate them as you go through the process and say, is this working? Is this not working? Do we have to put other steps in the middle of it to make it happen as well?
Hmm. Or is it realistic? So
Mm.
I don't make New Year's resolutions, but I certainly prepare for the next year.
Yep.
At the end of the year, I go into meditation and I feel the year to come. I
Yep.
feel the energy of it. And how do I need to prepare my business and myself for the next year's energy and whatever it is that I'm going to be facing, producing, and achieving in that space? So I'm looking at it, excuse me, I'm looking at it very holistically instead of just some random pipe dream that I pulled out of, you know what, to put into my new year. Like it doesn't work for me. As an empire builder myself, it just does not work. So I love that time at the end of the year where I'm like, okay, what is next year? What do I need to do? What do I need to create? All the things. And then I'm mentally prepared for it. And of course, I don't know everything that's coming in the year. The
Right.
year still has to unfold, but I get highlights. In that meditative state, I'm able to tap into this wonderful information and wisdom and knowledge that is beyond all of us. And it's so powerful. And I encourage anyone to tap into it, regardless of your belief system. I don't care. It's available to everybody.
I think meditating's a big value. I started when I
Hmm.
went through my divorce 4 years ago, a nightly, and I do it nightly. The other thing along the lines of meditation, I think, is a big value, especially for somebody busy, is keep a journal. Like, honestly,
Mm,
keep a journal. If you
yeah.
want it on paper, do it on paper. I tend to use an app called the Day One app. And one of the cool things with Day One is it's on my phone. So if I'm out and
Hmm.
about, want to add something, I can. If I want to drop a picture in that's relevant to what I'm thinking, I can. It does things like that easy. I did on paper for years. I've the journal probably for about 30 years.
Mm,
Well, I've switched from paper to an app in the last 5 years, but I mean, keep a journal, it helps. And the other thing I would say is don't let anybody read your journal. I write my journal for me, so the rule of thumb is nobody's allowed to read it. I don't care who
hmm.
it, my partner, my family, nobody reads it. It's for me.
Yep. Yep. 100%. I used to keep a journal. I kept a journal for decades. And at this stage for me, I just kind of like whatever pops into my head, I write it. I have a specific area on my phone where I write things down.
Same idea. Yeah.
And it's not traditional journaling anymore, but it still gets my thought out. And I write a lot of talks. I'm a public speaker and private speaker as well. So I write a lot of talks, I write books, I write those type of things. So now that's my form of journaling, if that makes sense.
It does. It absolutely does. It's creative expression, no matter how you're doing it. You know, it's funny. I
Mm-hmm.
was listening to a podcast this morning while I was working away, and there were a couple creatives on, tech creatives, and one of them was saying, the problem with creative expression is we all get pigeonholed. So if you're a podcaster, you do podcasts, and you don't branch out and you do anything else. If you're a YouTuber, you do YouTubes, and you don't branch out. And he said you should actually choose whatever fits your boat at any given time and just do it. And
Mm.
that's, because we're all creative to some extent. We just don't
Yeah.
see it.
To some extent, it comes out or manifests itself differently in each person. But yes, we all have, instead of calling us creatives, we all have creation energy inside of us.
Yeah.
And for me, I grew up singing and drawing and painting and dancing and all the things, right? So that was the creation energy expressing itself through me at that time. And now it expresses itself differently. It's in my emails and my
Yeah.
text messages in my talks, in my book, in my podcast, in my speaking, and all the things that I do, I use that creation energy in those ways. I'm just channeling it differently.
That's right. So true. So somebody, trying to grow a business, do you have, from your coaching experience and your business experience, do you have 3 quick tips that you can give somebody that they should try or look at or do? Besides hiring somebody like yourself, because I'll go there because I think it's invaluable. And besides getting a mentor, because I also think you should do both. You should hire. I've got a couple mentors who I can pick their
Hmm.
phone call.
Yeah.
Besides those two, I'll take those off the table on you right away. Do you have?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, find people you can trust, regardless of what it is that you're dealing with. Find people you can trust, which means dealing with your trust issues, because we all have them. So
Yes.
find people you can trust and force yourself to believe that something better is out there around the corner.
Yep.
And this is the only way that me and whoever else is able to pull ourselves out of where we're at and put ourselves in a better place. Even if where we're at is good,
Yes.
we still have to believe that something is better and we have to force ourselves to do it. It
Yes.
doesn't come naturally to most people to just, oh, I believe something better is out there. A lot of people get stuck in their circumstances. They get stuck in what's right in front of them and they don't believe that anything can be different, or they don't believe that there is better out there. They let their circumstances dictate their beliefs. So force yourself to believe that something better is out there.
So well said. Misty, thanks for your time today. If somebody wants to look into what you do, how's the best way to get a hold of you?
They can check me out on my website and email me from there as well. It's mistyrosegold.com.
Thank you very much, Misty. You have a wonderful day and be well.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate this interview.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for listening to the STM Show. The STM Show is brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital concierge. For all your digital marketing needs, especially WordPress security, jump on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and let's help you put the pieces together and make your business succeed in the marketing realm. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com.
A very special thank you to Misty for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show.
This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I love you. I miss you very much. And thanks for all the inspiration over the years and your caring, your understanding, and helping me grow as an individual. Thank you, Dad.